I saw the inspection in Toronto and I saw it at like a super early morning showing. And I feel like I sort of couldn't get up after I watched it, and it stuck with me until I rewatched it. Um, and I wanted to know for you, as somebody who is honoring somebody's story and they're like not just the writer of something, they're very very direct in the direction of it. Obviously, I wanted to know like what kind of pressure that felt for you.
It was a good kind of pressure.
Mhm.
It was the kind of pressure that made this cast and this crew kind of check their egos at the door
Mm,
and come to work every day and try to honor the story that we were telling. Elegance, our director and writer, was incredibly vulnerable throughout the process,
mm,
um, and I think it made us all take a step back and hold make space for him, but also there was a kind of sense of protection that we felt for the
mm.
story and for honoring his story. Uh, so so in that way, it was the best kind of pressure, because filmmaking can be so fraught with so much. There's so many egos and personalities, and I think cinema being a collaborative art, it takes everyone kind of checking their egos at the door and coming to the table with a common goal. And if you can have that, it's already hard. It's already difficult making a film, but if you at least are all trying to honor this common goal,
Mm.
that's an incredible gift. And we were very lucky in that way as a cast and as a crew.
It's a really good ensemble, I have to say. Like this is like a it's just my personal definition of like a really good ensemble is like you can feel the push and pull of like a scene or a beat, or you can sort of feel the presence of everybody, even though maybe those characters don't have lines in every scene. I think that makes this ensemble really successful. It's not about having a ton of people on screen at once. And
Yeah,
I think this is needs to be recognized more. People need to talk about how this is like a really strong ensemble of, you know, really
yeah.
great men. And of course, Gabrielle Union.
Mhm.
Um, there's a moment that's very early on in the movie when the recruits are calling home, and Rosales, you look at French in a way where I feel like you instinctively know that he's lying. And I want to know from, I guess, from you, like, how Rosales maybe picks up on little cues where maybe somebody feels like they're out of place, because both times that I watched it, I feel like I really picked up on that. Like I think Rosales has a really keen instinct for like these tiny little things, like maybe the modulation of French's voice, where you can kind of tell that he's not
Yeah,
comfortable.
yeah, yeah. I think there's a sense in Rosales that he recognizes a fish out of water when he sees one, um, and and it, I guess my take of it is he identifies with that for some reason or another. I think
Mhm.
he's um, certainly as a Latino, probably in the military. I always thought like that, having not been in the military, but having navigated American institutions as I have, like how you can feel like an outsider
Mhm.
at times, or be made to feel like an outsider, or like you're not meant to belong. Um, and I think Rosales sees something in French, uh, and yeah. So I love that you picked up on that in that moment, because that is like his initial
Yeah.
encounter with him. Yeah,
And I feel like it's sort of like if you wouldn't have caught that, maybe, I mean, obviously French goes through a lot of stuff later, but I mean, it's a really intimate, smaller moment that is between the two men without having to directly address it. Um, Bokeem Woodbine scares the shit out of me. Um, he's terrifying. He's terrifying in a way without it's very matter of fact
Yeah,
how he speaks to not just French but all the young men. And I want to know how difficult that is for Rosales because I was so drawn into how um I don't want to say plays the how Rosales has to play the part of a drill sergeant, but I feel like we get to see a lot of tenderness from him and a lot of patience from him, but also he has to do his job and he has to, whip these men into shape in his own way. Like I love how you have the line, "I'm here to lift you up." Um, and I was curious from you how difficult that is for him that he has a leader who is doing something his own way, but Rosales has his own way of doing things. Is that difficult for him, do you think?
well, he does say Rosales at one point says that he looked up to
Yeah.
Lopez. So I think he has a profound amount of respect for him. And I think
Mhm.
he's probably learned a lot from him. Um, and then French's presence in this platoon really kind of or in this group of recruits rather really kind of challenges that relationship.
Mhm.
So I think elegance would probably be more equipped to answer that question, but
Okay.
but 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 uh, um, but I do find it interesting that he admires him. That there is a moment where there's a place in time when Rosales really does look up to Laws, and he
Mhm.
learns a lot from him, and then there comes this point in their relationship where he learns how he wants to do things differently, and how he chooses to lead in a different way.
Mhm.
Um, I find that interesting. I mean, but the thing about Bokeem is he's like, well, first of all, I was I am such a huge fan of his
Yeah,
work.
he's such a great actor.
When Elegance told me that that Bokeem was going to be playing that part, I kind of jumped out of my seat because I've been following his career since like Dead Presidents and Jason's Lyric, and I was so excited to get to work with him and share the screen with him. And I think like you can't have like these confrontational, uh, heated scenes if you don't really trust each other, and you can't go
Mhm.
there. And with Bokeem, I felt like we built a rapport by that point, and we had developed a kind of kinship,
Mhm.
that allowed us to kind of play those trickier parts of the relationship.
Yeah, the fact that he admits that he admired him, that is if that line wasn't there, I just felt like that one line just gives so much more color to the
Totally
relationship. It's a simple thing, but it's great.
agreed.
Um, we do see some brief moments where Rosales is yelling on the phone. I felt really bad for him. I feel like there is a I think the time that we see you in the hallway screaming on the phone, I think you're being accused of cheating or something along those lines. And I just kept thinking the whole time, this guy, um, something about you being alone in the hallway stuck out to me. It was just like
Mm,
you are looking out for these young men, and I wonder, I was like, does he have somebody looking out for him? Does he feel like that he
mm.
has to? He is alone in that, and I don't know. How much time do you think Rosales's home life weighs on him? Just because the amount of anger that you have in your voice in that scene when you're just alone by yourself is very big, and I don't know, and maybe it taps into some sort of like loneliness of the character. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Elegance and I spoke about
Yeah.
that scene at length. Uh, he spoke to me about the sort of pressure and strain that these tours of duty put on these drill instructors. How
Mm,
they really believe in their mission and in the importance of the work that they're doing,
yeah.
but it puts a strain on their relationships, and both of those things are concurrently true. And you know, I, I I I found that really universal, and for for someone who spends a lot
Hmm.
of time away from home
Yeah.
as as an actor does, you know, and um, so yeah, Elegance and I talked a lot about tempering that moment and finding what his relationship to his wife is, and also to see this kind of this vulnerable side to him that we don't see in throughout the rest of the film,
Hmm.
which was an interesting opportunity to um, for him to be vulnerable in front of French, which is like you know that it just like it just made that relationship so rich for me
Mm.
uh, because it's they share so much with each other, even in these very economic proportions. You know, like
Yeah.
they're able to kind of see so much of each other, see each other's humanity, and um,
Mm.
I found that really interesting.
Yeah, that's another moment where I thought that it doesn't have to be a lot of things. It can be like a 30-second moment, and it I think it really sparks a curiosity in the viewer to really think that there's something about how men present themselves and how much
Yeah,
they allow themselves to show,
yeah,
and just just a brief moment like that can tell us so much or make us curious to so much. um
absolutely,
I did want to ask about masculinity and maybe not just this project but a lot of projects. I always say that men, no matter what their sexuality or where they come from, men are always sort of taught to not talk about their feelings or suppress them. Or, if I always joke that um, gay men talk too much about their feelings and then we get judged for it. Um, I was curious what conversations you had with Elegance about that, maybe with the whole cast. Just because I feel like through a lot of projects that you've been a part of, maybe like Looking or We the Animals, masculinity is a topic that I feel like we need to talk more about. And I was wondering what that was
absolutely.
like on this particular project.
Yeah, I mean, Elegance and I spoke a lot about femininity, actually,
Okay.
in relation to masculinity, and like how that's often, especially as men of color, how that's like often like beat out of us or like kind of like squashed. And I was very fortunate as a kid that it wasn't beat out of me. I mean, I grew up in a pretty patriarchal machista environment, and I was a
Hmm.
pretty sensitive, somewhat feminine kid, and I'm very lucky that I had parents that weren't like put off by that or intimidated by that, and or
Hmm.
beat it out of me, and like uh, I love characters that challenge those notions, and uh, yeah, I mean, I think that's why Elegance and I get along as we do is because we see the prism of masculinity,
Hmm.
and I loved how he didn't want to hammer down who this, I think Rosales inspires more questions from an audience than it does like definitive answers,
Yeah.
and I love that. I love filmmakers who are more interested in nuanced portrayals of any kind of character.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So he was, I think that's the kind of storyteller he is, and I can't wait to see what he does next because of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There was a moment where the first time I saw the movie, I saw it by myself, and then my husband watched it with me, and I feel like the he kept making comments throughout, about particularly your character, sort of through the prism of masculinity, and like there was, I think, the first time that you see the when you and Jeremy have that dream sequence in the bathroom stall. Like, as soon as that scene was over, he's like, "Wait, is he gay?" I was like, "Just watch the movie. Just watch the movie, and we'll find out." It's not like it doesn't have to be black and white. It could be a lot of just watch the movie. Um, and I will say that I think that, in terms of masculinity and femininity, like I feel like my parents were also very, they let me just be the flouncy kid that I was, and I always joked that I was a very swishy child. And I feel like a lot of society puts all that stupid crap on us, and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just stupid.
Agree.
So I guess one last question before I let you go. I was very intrigued by the film. Um gosh, why did I just blank on it? The Same Storm. Um,
Oh, cool.
and I saw that at like a digital version of a film festival, and I don't think I know we all are like we don't want to talk about COVID. We want to get past it, but I also feel like it's really important to talk about what we learned from that space and that time and what we learned about ourselves since we're all by ourselves. And I was curious as an actor, what maybe you learned about yourself as a performer with that particular very specific project.
That was a really um, necessary experience for me when we shot that film. Peter Hedges wrote and directed The Same Storm. The wonderful Peter Hedges. He um, we shot from, I forget how many people are in the cast, but everyone shot from their own individual apartments or
Hmm.
homes, and each of us, most of the actors have two scenes, and we start one scene with one actor, we leave that scene, and
Hmm.
it's all virtual. And I think it was May of 2020 when I was asked to do. Peter wanted to get some actors together. He was developing the script, and he had a couple scenes that he had written, and at that point, I was in Brooklyn. I was home with my fiance. We were like, kind of isolated and alone, and I was looking to do anything that was a creative outlet.
Yeah.
It was so, I think for a lot of creative people, it was a really tough time.
Mm.
Um, so it just came at a really great time. We shot eventually in August of 2020.
Yeah.
The only person I saw in person was the production designer who came to my apartment
Okay.
to drop off equipment to make my closet look like an ER closet,
Yeah.
because I was playing a nurse,
Mhm.
as you saw, and
Yeah.
and then I didn't meet Peter Hedges until I think it was September, October at Austin Film Festival in 2021. So like an entire
That's
year later,
crazy. Oh,
we finally
wow.
met in person. And it was interesting because seeing the film in 2021, it was great to see it with an audience. And
Mm,
Austin Film Festival, that such a great festival, and that audience really embraced the film. But we just opened for a limited run, and I got to see it at the Hamptons Film Festival at the Quad in New York
mhm,
this fall of 2022. And I feel like we there was 2 years like gave us a little bit more distance,
mhm.
and I feel like people were a little bit more ready, um, and willing
Oh, yeah.
to process what we all
Yeah,
collectively
yeah.
went through. Yeah, I think the
Yeah.
Q&As were much more interesting, much more lively now. I feel like people
Mhm.
they're ready to process it. So I hope more. I'm so glad you mentioned the film because I really hope that more audiences will discover that film. I'm really proud of it. It's got an incredible
Yeah.
cast.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because it's got like a lot of really great people, and it's also
yeah,
just like I love the sort of like basicness of just like someone talking. It's just raw emotion, and it's just
yeah,
almost it's
yeah.
almost like you get to see some actors like even just go back to their roots or stuff of stuff. That's really cool. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. Um, well, thank you, Raul, so much. I'm a really big fan. I think you're very contemplative, very a very emotional actor, whether you are always showing the emotions or not. I always feel it from you. So thank you so much for your time. And I love the movie and I'm can't wait for more people to see it.
I appreciate it, Joey.
Yeah.
Thanks so
All
much.
right.
Good talking to
Thanks.
you.
Stay safe. Have a good day.
You too.
Thanks.
Bye.